whenever I came in, I was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like wiping tears away. And he was like, do you want to talk about it? And I was like, you don't understand. I'm going to have to talk about 4 books worth of information for you to fully understand the extent of why I'm hurting for this character right now. Obviously, I love Fourth Wing. Obviously, I love, other books that have dragons. I don't know. They're like little puppies that can talk and are human in shape and have missiles in their arms. Welcome back, listeners, watchers, readers of all kind. Welcome to another episode of the Unfinished TBR. I'm Hannah, and today I am solo again for our debrief. This time not due to sickness or anything. This time it is due to the snowstorm that is outside. In fact, I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for the snowstorm because I am off work today. It is a random Monday that I have off because we closed down. So, obviously just me again today, but we are going, I know I said this last time, but we are going to get caught up on what Allie has been reading. And we're going to have another Kasey's Corner coming your way before too terribly long. She read 8 books in January, so I'm super proud of her. Off to a great start on her goal for this year. And Allie had another 8 as well. And so we are all off to a really good start. I had 9. If you follow us on social media, you've already seen that I have hit 9 for the month of January. So obviously there's a lot to cover. So let's get right into it. First of all, what I've been currently reading, I finally got real serious about reading the books that I have just had on my current reads for ages. And so in spoiler alert, I did finish the Sentinels and the Oakwood. So now I'm working on the Skeleton Crew by Stephen King. I read some more last night. And so I plan on getting through at least 1 or 2, maybe 3, depending on the length, short stories every night this week to try to finish it up. Beyond that, also last night, I started Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher, who is the same author of the Dreamland Billionaire series. I have already seen in a couple different places where she's referenced the Dreamland Billionaire series. And so that's really cool. It's starting off strong. So I can't wait to talk about it next month. And so let's get into the month, shall we? And today's project that I'll be working on, I have been trying to finish this sweater for what feels like years now. I keep messing up. And so this is my 5th attempt at getting this correct. This is the final piece of the puzzle before it's done. So this is the part that is getting pulled out. I'm frogging as I go. Which is a crochet term for ripping out stitches, because you rip it. That's literally why it's called that. So you learn something new every day. All right. So my first book of the month was Finale by Stephanie Garber. It was book 3 of the Caraval series. I listened on Libby from December 31st to January 5th. In this one, if you remember from the last debrief, I had read Legendary, and that one, it went from Caraval being Scarlett's point of view to Legendary being Donatella's point of view, and I didn't really like that, but this book, we got both sisters' points of view, which I appreciated. I was missing Scarlett terribly. Another thing that had been going from last year is I read the Once Upon a Broken Heart series before I read the Caraval series. And in the last book, I saw the connection on why these should be read first, but obviously I didn't do that. But this one went more in depth on why this should be read before the other. So anybody who is wanting to read one or both of these series, I would highly suggest starting with the Caraval series and going on to the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. Because now I want to read the Once Upon a Broken Heart series because there's that little bit of overlap between the beginning of the Once Upon a Broken Heart series and the end of this book, which is pretty cool. I like when timelines overlap like that. So Julian and Dante, golly Moses, golly. I absolutely love the fact that having a young adult book forces authors to create genuine connections between these characters, because I felt it through the pages with Julian and Dante. Like, they had a connection with those two sisters. Mom, you're not hearing this, but I've read some like filthy smut in my adult life, but something about a steamy kiss is 10 times better than smut most of the time. There are exceptions to that rule, but it's because of that genuine connection that you have to get. If you have a book that doesn't have smut, you can't rely on that physical connection. You have to have an emotional connection to make it done right. And this book does that, because something about them kissing and then pulling away, forcing themselves to stop because they've got bigger fish to fry, or they don't want to move too fast, or something like that. Something about it, oh my God, I crave it more than any amount of smut in a book. I crave that yearning. That is what I want. I will say the ending of this book initially felt rushed to me, but during the epilogue, I actually decided no, this was the perfect ending for both siblings. She cut it off at the perfect point. Anybody who's read the series probably knows what I'm talking about, and it was beautiful. I loved it, actually. So I gave it a 4 out of 5. It is a 4.1 overall. It is on Libby. The cheapest option is $9.10 paperback. Next, okay, so I was going through my Audible and trying to find the books that I had gotten on there that I hadn't touched yet. And these were the first ones available. And so I started them. And it kickstarted a very nerdy side of me. A lot has changed this month. I never in my life have played Dungeons and Dragons, but I sat in on my first meet this month, and I think it's largely due to these books. I think I've unlocked something between the Ender's Game series and this series. I've unlocked something, and I'm basically a huge nerd now, which obviously we already kind of knew, but it's really solidifying for me. It's a new branch of nerd, I guess I should say. A new branch has grown. And it is the D&D, it is the video game, it is the Elder Scrolls side of things. Because I read The Infernal City, an Elder Scrolls novel by Greg Keyes. My husband has played the Elder Scrolls games. He's raved about them basically since we got together. He has played Skyrim 2 or 3 times in front of me, and it was fabulous to watch him play that. I really felt immersed, and I don't know, I always loved it. So I saw that there were these 2 books that had to do with the Elder Scrolls games, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. They weren't very long books, and so I listened on Audible from January 5th to January 7th, this first one. I do wish he had played Skyrim or Elder Scrolls more recently than he has, because it's been like, I think his last playthrough was over a year ago, back when we were at the apartment. It's been a while since I couldn't recall names of things very much, but I got enough of the references to where I was able to enjoy this book. This is the kind of fantasy that hooks you on the politics of things, like the fantasy politics, the inner world politics. And I love it. I've stated before, I do not want ever to talk about real life politics, but I will talk all day about other worlds politics, gladly. And this is one of those books. It's honestly the perfect mix of serious and silly. On one hand, this floating city is eating souls from the people in Tamriel, and essentially turning them into zombies. Like, they come out and they fight everybody, you know. As they continue along, they fight the next people that they come in contact with to make it easier for them to harvest their souls, right? But also, Eneg is stuck working for them in the kitchen, preparing these souls into dishes. She becomes like the head chef, like a very important chef. I don't think the head chef, but she becomes a very important chef in all this. So like, it was that halfway serious, halfway not. And I guess that did remind me I needed to go back and read the synopsis here. Okay, so here is the synopsis for the Infernal City. 4 decades after the Oblivion Crisis, Tamriel is threatened anew by an ancient and all-consuming evil. It is Umbriel, a floating city that casts a terrifying shadow. For wherever it falls, people die and rise again. And it is in Umbriel's shadow that a great adventure begins, and a group of unlikely heroes meet. A legendary prince with a secret, a spy on the trail of a vast conspiracy, a mage obsessed with his desire for revenge, and Eneg, a young girl in whose hand the fate of Tamriel may rest. It's right up my alley, and I don't know why I never thought that it would be, because I've always enjoyed watching my husband play these video games. I don't understand why I was even hesitant to start these. Like, it's right up my alley. And then the prince, for some reason, because like, when you read the book, there's nothing that ties him to this character, but the prince reminds me of Prince Char from the movie Ella Enchanted, which I absolutely love. So that's who I was seeing in my mind anytime that the prince was referenced. And I don't know. They're nothing alike. I guess it's just where he's a prince, and there's that like slightly silly side of this that's going on. I don't know, but that's all I could picture, and I wasn't mad about it. The narrator was Michael Page. He does voices for all of the characters. Obviously, whenever a narrator does that, I can't help but compare them to the Harry Potter series with Jim Dale. And it's not, Michael Page wasn't as good, but, I mean, it was still good. I still enjoy the extra immersion when the voices are done. I love that so much. So I gave this a 3.5 out of 5. It is a 3.3 overall. $10.99 on Kindle is the cheapest. Originally, this one was on the Audible Plus or whatever, where it was accessible for free. By the time I came back around to it, it was no longer the free version. I did use a credit on it, but I had some credits stockpiled, so it wasn't that big of a deal. And then the next one, The Lord of Souls, an Elder Scrolls novel by Greg Keyes, it was still free on Audible. Don't know how that works. Don't know why that works. But yeah, I didn't have to spend a credit on it. So it might be worth looking into if you're looking for your next read. Maybe look and see if at least that second one is free, and then you just have to use a credit on the first one. I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas for you. Free books. So yes, Lord of Souls, I read from January 7th to January 9th. I was thinking it in the first one, but it was very solid in this one. This duology did remind me that whenever my husband was playing Skyrim the last time, I noticed some similarities between Skyrim and Throne of Glass. And I talked to my husband about it and kind of picked his brain on Skyrim characters, Skyrim places, things that are referenced there, just to see if there were any significant connections. Because I remember him going through Skyrim and he would say names of places, and I was like, that's awfully close. You know, there's and there's other instances like that. Certain characters have similar names and stuff like that. I do think that's all the extent is. And I just say it because it's a really cool, like, almost felt like an Easter egg whenever he was playing it last year. Because I was like, what if she's just a huge Elder Scrolls nerd and got some of her names, you know, derived from the Skyrim or Elder Scrolls universe. And I don't know, it just, I'm a nerd with Throne of Glass, he's a nerd with Elder Scrolls, so it was a good way for us to kind of bounce ideas off of each other and stuff. We had a really good conversation about it. Okay, back to the book itself. I actually liked this second one more than the first. There were multiple times that my jaw dropped over what was happening. I think, and with it being a duology, I think it was the perfect length for these books. It didn't feel like it was going over too much. It didn't feel like anything was left out. Everything was just tied in a nice little bow, and I appreciate that. I also liked how organic all of the relationships felt. There, for instance, there was one that perfectly encompassed companionship. No physical attraction, just companionship. The most that the character did was kiss her on the cheek, and that was more gratitude than any physical attraction, because she had given him some information, and he had spent so much time around humans. He saw that was how they expressed gratitude sometimes, and so he kissed her on the cheek, and that was it. And the rest, but they still have such a companionable relationship between the two of them. I don't know. It's just, I appreciate that so much. It goes along the same lines as what I said with Finale, where, you know, if there's no physical attraction, if there's no physical expression going on, you have to rely on the relationship itself, the connection that's made in the relationship itself. And so this author did, and it was really, really good. And I don't know, that level of depth in different relationships, because not every relationship was like that. Some of them, they did have a physical connection at the end. They did, you know, end up kissing and stuff, but you could still feel the emotion behind it. But the depth of the different relationships really surprised me and made me appreciate his writing. It also reminded me that I genuinely still don't understand the depth of emotion that men have. I guess I think that's what I'm trying to say, because, like, I remember reading The Maze Runner and The Scorched Trials last year, and things happening in the book, and that's written by a man, and the Percy Jackson series. I remember things happening in the book for both of those, and it was like, oh, he gets what these feelings are. And so it kind of like surprised me, like, oh, there's actually guys that feel this way because a man is writing about it. So obviously there's some guys that have this depth of emotion when it comes to love and stuff like that. I don't know, stuff like that. It always throws me off, and I don't know why. Like, even with my parents are very much in love, but every time something comes up and Dad expresses his feelings in some way, I'm like, oh my God, that man is actually in love. Like, it just surprises me. I don't know. I guess I'm expecting all men to put up a front or something. I don't know. Anyway, I gave this book a 4 out of 5. It is a 3.8 overall, so I guess more people agree with my assessment that this one is better than the first one. It is, as of now, and I'm recording this on February 2nd, as of now, it is free on Audible. It is the other cheapest option if you don't have Audible is going to be $4.99 on Kindle. So next, I was continuing in my new nerd era and listened to Children of the Mind by Orson Scott Card. This is the direct sequel to Xenocide, which I read in December of last year and was actually my favorite of December. If you've seen our 2025 recap, yeah, that was my favorite of December. So, I mentioned in the December reading debrief that the Xenocide and Children of the Mind was actually going to be one single book. Orson Scott Card decided to split it into two, and his editors were fine with that because it meant a bigger opportunity for them to make more money. Because it's a direct sequel, I'm not going to reread or read the synopsis for it. I listened on Libby from January 12th to January 14th. This one wasn't as philosophical. I think I kept saying psychological last time and I meant philosophical, so sorry about that. Obviously, I don't read these books very often because I didn't know which word to use. But yeah, this one was not as philosophical as Xenocide, but Orson Scott Card has this super profound way of writing that means he doesn't necessarily have to dive into the philosophical to make a scene or a section of dialogue or a description sound like just genius. Like, it's just the way he describes things. I don't know how to put it other than this is a prime example of the true gift of writing. This man has it. I am a huge fan. I want these books on my bookshelf for when I go to reread them. I want a TV show of this series. I desperately need to find people that love this series as much as I do. If you have read the Ender's Game series and want to talk about it, I desperately need somebody to talk to about it. I need to dissect these books as much as me and my friends have dissected Throne of Glass and A Court of Thorns and Roses. I need it. And it's so hard to, I don't know if I just haven't been looking at enough things, but I need to find the fan base because I've got to have somebody to talk about it with. It is a real struggle to not have anybody to discuss it with. Miro, in these two books, might be my favorite character. I love Jane so much, both as the computer and as Val. I think they're my favorite of the people, of the characters. I genuinely teared up in the car while listening to... Okay, so Miro had to talk down to Val whenever he was desperate to get Ender to give up that body. Ender had made these two other bodies that represented his siblings and represented these parts of himself that he saw in his siblings that he couldn't face of himself. So obviously he was split but in three ways and was struggling to keep all of them active. So he was trying to berate the Val side, his sister's side of things, to get Ender to leave that body so that Jane could inhabit it instead of the computer. And it was so obvious he didn't want to say the things he was saying. He didn't mean the things that he was saying. And I could feel that pain of the duality of it through the narration and through the book. And oh my gosh, the anguish that he felt trying to, or having to say these things to her when she was such a kind-hearted person and such a ray of sunshine, and he had to berate her for it. It was, I genuinely walked in the house after that scene. I sat outside and had to finish the chapter because obviously, And whenever I came in, I was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like wiping tears away. And he was like, do you want to talk about it? And I was like, you don't understand. I'm going to have to talk about 4 books worth of information for you to fully understand the extent of why I'm hurting for this character right now. And that is the problem I'm running into. I need people out there who have read these books to reach out to me, please, because I've got to talk about it with somebody. I have to. I need to dissect this book so much. All of these books, really, I cannot wait to go on to the next one. And I'll want to dissect it as well. I just, I love it. I love it. I've just gotten so connected to these characters that are as old as me. This book was published in 1996. It's been almost 30 years, and here I am just as connected to them as I would with any book from this generation. Like, I can't. I never want to leave this world. I just love it so much. I gave this book a 4.25 out of 5. It's a 3.8 overall. It is on Libby. It's on Kindle Unlimited. And the cheapest option is either $9.29 mass market paperback or $9.99 Kindle, if you don't think that's too big of a difference. I need more of this world. I'm really excited for the next one. But I also don't exactly know where to start, because he said in his author's note that the series that he wrote that went off of one of his classmates from the academy, that series that he wrote, the ending of that one kind of ties into the ending of this one. So obviously I need to read those. I feel like that means I need to read those first. That way I don't spoil the ending for that other strain of story. And obviously Orson's got the writing genius in him. And so it's going to be good to read another series by him. And that's probably where I'll start. Unless there's a better way of going about it. And if so, somebody reach out to me, and I will be so excited to know that somebody is pointing me in the right direction and know who I can talk to whenever all this is done. Oh, next, I read The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. I did it. Allie said this was her favorite of 2025. She was raving about it so much in the 2025 reading recap. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch it, because she had a glowing review of this book. She actually restarted it. She said, I can't wait to do another reread, so I'm just going to do it. And so she was partially in it, and she Snapchatted me, and she was like, I need you to read this book. She was like, let me convince you to read this book, because I need somebody to talk about it with, and you're going to want to do another reread before the second book comes out in September. Go ahead and read this one now so we can talk about it, and then you'll still want to do the reread in September. And the thing that got me was that she wanted somebody to talk about it with. So obviously I had to help her out there, because I get it. I was literally just begging somebody from the Ender's Game fandom to reach out so that I have somebody to talk about that with. So I completely understood her need for somebody to talk about The Night and the Moth with. And I'm so glad that I did. I listened to it on Audible. I had already used a credit on it sometime last year. I read it, and I started it on January 14th. I can't remember when I ended it. And I'm so glad that I did. I'm not going to talk too much about it, because me and Allie go in depth. She actually told me that once I finished it, she would be willing to come over and do a nighttime episode so that we could talk about it while it was still fresh on both of our minds. And so that's what we did. We got together on a random Monday evening after work, and she came over and we had a little book club together on it. One of the things that I did, I went through our Fable. I made our Fable book club, The Night and the Moth. I went through chapter by chapter and kept track of how I was feeling. I would love for you to do the same. Come find us on Fable. It's the Unfinished TBR book club. And follow along with us. I do think I'm either going to post that next week or the week after. I haven't decided yet. So be looking for it and prepare. You've got a week. On Audible, it's relatively quick. We would love to have your input. We would love to talk about it with you. So follow along. My gosh, was she right? This was a 5 out of 5. It's a 4.4 overall. The cheapest option is $14.99 on Kindle. Or, of course, an Audible credit. So follow along. Be looking for that either next week or the week after. Possibly even the week after that. We shall see. Next, I read This Woven Kingdom. Oh, and I'm going to butcher this name, and I'm so sorry. It's This Woven Kingdom by Tahereh Mafi. I apologize. I read this on Kindle Unlimited from January 9th to January 21st. If that author name rings a bell to you, it's because this is the same author who wrote the Shatter Me series. I've not read that series though, so I can't tell you how this one compares to that one because I haven't read it. The reason I picked this book to be next is I saw pretty fan art on social media. That was it. That's how easy I am at getting me to read a book. I saw pretty fan art. It was gorgeous. The problem is, I don't entirely know how I feel about this book. Even now. It's been, about a week and a half since I finished it. I still don't know how I feel about it. So I'm going to talk about the different things and try to explain my indecision on the book. We'll see if it makes any sense to you. We'll see if it goes along with your thoughts on the books or on the book if you've read it. So let's begin, shall we? It had a unique magic system. I like unique magic systems. The djinn in it. Oh, well, before we begin, and here I almost forgot again, let's read the synopsis. All right, so here's the synopsis for This Woven Kingdom. Clashing empires, forbidden romance, and a long-forgotten queen destined to save her people. Tahereh Mafi's first in an epic romantic trilogy inspired by Persian mythology. To all the world, Eliza is a disposable servant, not the long-lost heir to an ancient Jinn kingdom forced to hide in plain sight. The crown prince, Cameron, has heard the prophecies foretelling the death of his king, but he could never have imagined that the servant girl with the strange eyes, the girl he can't put out of his mind, would one day soon uproot his kingdom and the world. Yeah, that is the synopsis for it. That is the first time I've read it because, like I said, I was just focused on the fan art. Didn't even consider reading the synopsis. So here are reasons why I'm on the fence on how I feel about this book as a whole. It has a unique magic system, for one thing. The Jinn are basically Nephilim or fallen angels with unbelievable strength, speed, and the power to disappear at will. They ruled the Earth for a time, but no longer do. Instead, the roles are basically reversed, and the Jinn are usually servants for the clay humans. The writing of this book is very beautiful. It has a lot of really big words. And that's the main reason I held on, to be honest. Because that set my expectations pretty high as well. But the entire timeline of the book happens in less than a week, which I feel like goes to show how slow paced this book is. It took about 60% of this book for me to feel like I couldn't set it down, which was a long time to hold on. And if it wasn't for the fact that I just knew their first kiss would be top tier, if I hadn't known that, I probably wouldn't have held on for that long, even with the beautiful writing. The reason I knew it would be top tier is because of the beautiful writing. That is just how it works. The way that she describes things are beautiful. So a kiss would be out of this world, and I knew it. I loved the twist at the end, the big reveal of what has been going on. But then and here's my biggest gripe with it. They introduced a dragon to the story when there had been no even mention of dragons in the entire book. It's like, because don't get me wrong, obviously I love Fourth Wing. Obviously I love, other books that have dragons. I don't know. The Assistant to the Villain series has a dragon. I don't have anything against dragons. I don't. But what I have against it is that it's not even mentioned as a possibility before. Like, even if she had included a section in the book that was like, it's kind of like Game of Thrones, I feel like, which, full disclosure, I haven't read the books. I've only watched the TV show. But it's kind of like that in a way where they were talking about the possibility of dragons. There used to be dragons before. So whenever dragon eggs were introduced and those dragon eggs hatched, it wasn't that big a deal because we'd had the basis for dragons within the story. There was one other series, and I love the series. It's actually the Plated Prisoner series, which I have displayed here on my bookshelf. That I love that series. But in either the last one or the second to last one, there's a random, suddenly there's a dragon. And I didn't like it then either. But I still love the books. This one in This Woven Kingdom was even worse because not only was it a random dragon, but also it was a random dragon that could turn invisible or appear as a magic carpet. What? What? Like, I'm speechless. I genuinely don't know what to say about that. And it's just, you see what I'm saying? Like, and there was no setup for this kind of system. That's a big, dragon, that's a big plot point to not even set up within the story. I don't know. I really don't know if I want to continue the series because part of me is still curious about how her story ends and what happens to Cameron and Hazan, but I just don't know if I can keep doing this slow pace, and the dragon thing really tripped me up, man. Invisible or a magic carpet. Invisible I could almost get. Almost. But a magic carpet? Like, that just feels like you're trying too hard. I'm sorry. I gave it 3.25 out of 5. It's a 3.9 overall. It is on Kindle Unlimited. The cheapest option is $9.50 on paperback. So drop a comment down below if you've read this book and if the second one gets better, if it's not as slow paced, if it's not as jarring with new things in the world. I might give it a try, but I'm going to need some convincing. So if this is one of your favorite series, convince me down below to continue. Next, I read The Trial of the Sun Queen by Nisha J. Tuli. I listened on Audible for free with my membership. So if you've got a membership to Audible right now, it's free. I'm going to go ahead and read the synopsis before I forget, because you know I will. 10 women, a deadly contest. Only one can win the Sun King's heart. Lore has endured 12 long years of torment under the Aurora King's rule. Her only desire is to escape and pay him back for every moment of misery she's endured. When a surprise release finds her in the hands of the rival Sun King, Lore is thrust into the spotlight as she competes against 9 other tributes for the role of queen. If she wins his heart, she'll earn her freedom and finally get her revenge. But Lore doesn't belong in the Sun Queen trials. Not only does she not understand why she was freed, she isn't a citizen of the Sun King's court. The other tributes resent her presence and will stop at nothing to ensure Lore is removed from the competition permanently. Now Lore must win, because if she loses, she dies. Or worse, she'll be returned to the evil and now vengeful Aurora King. Okay, so I had this book on my Kindle Unlimited for, gosh, it's been well over a year. And so whenever I saw that it was on Audible for free, I was like, heck yes, let's do that instead, because, you know, drive to work. And I mean, I'm an audiobook girly, so if it was free, yeah, I was going to take that opportunity. The reason I had it on my Kindle Unlimited was because my sister-in-law reached out to me, and she was like, hey, I heard that this is a good book if you like the trial portion of the the Throne of Glass series. If you like the trial portion, then you'll like these books. And I really like the trial portion, but I want you to tell me if that's accurate or not. And I was like, yeah, absolutely I will. So I'm finally getting around to it, Katie. And, I saw somebody's review actually as like right after reading the synopsis there that was like, this is when you tell your mom you want Throne of Glass, and she says, we have Throne of Glass at home. Which is really funny. So I don't necessarily, I think it's a stretch to say that if you liked the trial portion of Throne of Glass, then you would like this, because there's a big difference between the two. Because in my opinion, it's more like if you like the idea of fantasy, but also are a big fan of The Bachelor. It's fantasy meets The Bachelor is what it is. I always hated The Bachelor. I thought it was stupid. I thought it was very cringy to think that he's around kissing all these girls and the girls are just fine with it because, hey, there's a chance that he's going to pick them. That feels very... I don't know. It feels very icky to me that a guy would do that. I don't know. I've always been a very anti-Bachelor person. I've never gotten into watching it. So sorry if that breaks your heart, but I'm just not a reality TV show girly as a whole. But The Bachelor in particular just pissed me off back in the day. So I just avoid it now because why would I want to get pissed off? No. I got other ways to do that. If you like The Bachelor and if you like the idea of fantasy, then this might be a good book for you. Once you get past the trials, which does take a majority of the book, but once you get past it and like honestly get to the final couple, then I think it gets better. I'm on the fence about it. I do I kind of plan on going on to the next book. I'm just not in any big rush to get there. I don't know. Oh yeah. There was something that took me completely out of the story, and I don't know if it's a book thing, which I guess I can go back and look because it's it's on Kindle Unlimited for free. But at one point toward the end of the story, the main character is addressing two of the other contestants and says, y'all. Obviously, me, Allie, and Kasey have talked about how we're from the South. Like, we use y'all on a regular basis. That's nothing new. But to go the entire book without having an accent like that or using y'all or any other what's considered Southern dialect, and then suddenly throw it in there, I don't know. It was kind of jarring. I had to go back and re-listen like 3 times to that section. I slowed it down and everything to make sure I was hearing correctly, because I was like, there's no way she just said that. And I tried to reason that maybe it was the narrator, but I don't see you all and just immediately go y'all. I have to see it as Y''ALL, y'all, to say it like that. Otherwise, if I'm reading it, I will say you all. So I don't think it was a narrator thing. I think it was a book thing. It was just weird. Anyway, I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5. It's a 3.9 overall. Like I said, it's free on Audible right now. It is on Kindle Unlimited. The cheapest option is $9.68 on paperback. Next, I learned a lot of things about myself because I read The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. Allie read this at some point last year while we were still at Mom and Dad's. I can't remember when it was, but she read it. And ever since she spoke highly of it, I've had this on my Libby holds. It's been months, because it was at least May, maybe June, that she read it. So since she read it, I'm not going to read the synopsis. Just go back and re-listen to her thoughts on it and then come back and listen to mine. But I think I discovered a subgenre that I really love and wasn't expecting to love. War strategy. I never would have picked up on that based on the other books where I liked it, because I'm thinking about, she was in this strategy class, and I was reminded of Fourth Wing, where they had a strategy class. I was reminded of A Court of Wings and Ruin, where they discussed a lot of the strategy on how to win the war and stuff, and Ender's Game with the battle against the aliens and stuff, like all of this strategy and everything. For some reason, it didn't click until this book that those are some of my favorite scenes from those books. I love strategy. In fact, this book makes me want to read The Art of War by Sun Tzu. I never thought I would ever want to read a book like that, but I'm starting to think I would really like it. So obviously, I have added it to my Libby holds. I'll let you know whenever I read it, whether that was a good call and whether I'm glad that I did, or if it's just in fantasy settings that I like it. Anyway, so about 75 of the way through the book, I do want to put this out there because I was not prepared, and I was driving and had to pull over because I was like nauseous a little bit. But about 75% of the way through this book is a scene that is extremely hard to swallow. So please take care of your mental health, and proceed with caution if you have any triggers toward severe sexual abuse and inhumane slaughter of humans, including children. I respect R.F. Kuang for not pulling her punches on these scenes, because the whole point is to feel it and to feel that rage and that comes from it, and that need for retribution that comes from it. Because I think without those scenes, without those descriptions of what these monsters had done to these people and these children and just the entire town, the way they butchered them, the way they went about it, I think without hearing that, without reading that, I think it would have been easier to question Ren's decision at the end of the book. But I can tell you with 100% certainty, anybody who's read the book knows what I'm talking about, but I would 100% do what Ren did. Without a doubt. If I had seen the things that she saw and heard the recounting of the woman who was left, I would have been in those exact same shoes. I would have made the exact same decision. No hesitation at all. Simply for retribution over what was done. And the cruelty that occurred. Just all around. I don't feel like it was a jump scare type thing where it was trying to shock you. I think it was laying out the worst of humanity in a way that fit with the story, in a way that reaffirmed Ren's decision at the end. Because otherwise, I feel like it would be easier to question, like, oh my gosh, how could you do that? But whenever you read it, whenever it's laid out so plainly to you, it makes a lot more sense on why she did it. And I can, in fact, the ones who didn't see it, the ones who didn't hear the accounts from the woman who survived, the ones who aren't aware of everything that happened are the ones that are questioning her on her decision. And I think that's the whole point. I think R.F. Kuang it's bold. It's a bold decision. And obviously it's moving. I had to pull over to get through it. And I respect that. I respect it. It's tough. So make the decision for yourself on whether you can handle it. Another thing that I respect with R.F. Kuang is that she didn't feel the need to include any like real romance. Like at one point, it is kind of like she has a crush on somebody, but then it's not once acted on. It's not a focus of the book, because there was an author interview at the end of the book, the audiobook that I was listening to, and she was like, I didn't want the vanity of her trying to secure a match be the forefront of it. The only time that it's even mentioned is that her hair is her best quality, and she's like, well, gotta hack it off anyway, so that's the only bit of vanity that she had at any point. And she said she did that on purpose because it's supposed to be about the war. It's not supposed to be about the romance or even the possibility of romance. It's just supposed to be war. And I respect that. This was another 5 out of 5 for me. So that's 2 books in this month that were 5 out of 5. This one's a 4.3 overall. It's on Libby and Kindle Unlimited. And it's also $7.99 paperback is the cheapest. And finally, the moment that I've been trying to get to since we got this book in the mail from J.P.S. Stalder and his wife. I finally finished The Sentinels in the Oakwood by J.P.S. Stalder. On the 27th of September last year, I picked it up and read 2 pages. That's as far as I got. And and didn't pick it back up until January 25th. So I just restarted it, those 2 pages, because it'd be dumb to like just reread it, you know? So I finished it at 7:30 on January 31st, right in time for this debrief. All right, here's the synopsis for Sentinels in the Oakwood. More than 100 years after nuclear war, nature has reclaimed much of the world that was destroyed. The Missouri Ozarks have returned to what they once were, a vast wilderness of woodlands, lakes, and caves. Some of the descendants of those who survived the war have since emerged from their shelters to establish substance-based communities, relying on the traditions of their ancestors. Others remain in the highly sophisticated underground facilities into which their forefathers retreated when the bombs fell. Those underground live with technologies lost to the world above, including Sentinels, advanced, intelligent robotic humanoids. For those who have never even known electricity, the hulking machines reflect the scary stories told around the campfire. Meanwhile, lurking in the shadows, a growing threat from the north is emerging from those who would conquer and subdue any who will not submit. As unique challenges force each of these groups to seek compromise and cooperation to survive, new leaders must emerge to forge a new path. With the future of their people hanging in the balance, will these new leaders courageously rise to the challenge, or will they be destroyed by their self-doubt and fear? I thought it was a really cool concept, and the robots were my absolute favorite part of this book. In my mind, they were some kind of hybrid between Baymax from Big Hero 6, the robot from The Wild Robot, and Eve from WALL-E. It was the perfect combination of all of those, and every time that it changed to their points of view, I loved it. I thought it was so funny. I thought, because them trying to interact with humans, not understanding some human intricacies and stuff, it was just so cute. I loved it. They're like little puppies that can talk and are human in shape and have missiles in their arms. As with any indie books, it had its idiosyncrasies. By the end, I could hear the author's voice in all the characters instead of the characters having their own voices. For instance, whenever people are addressing large groups of people, they all say, folks, what we've got here is we need to join together. Folks, this is a really good idea. All of the characters would say that. So it was one of those, I could tell that's J.P.S. Stalder, which is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It was his voice instead of theirs. There were regular typos and grammatical errors. The biggest thing that got me was when he was talking about a dam that holds water and spelled it D-A-M-N. The first time I was like, oh, maybe it's autocorrect. I even pointed it out to my husband and I was like, hey, what are the chances this is autocorrect? And he was like, a good possibility. And then it happened the second time and I was like, I am starting to think this is not autocorrect. Another problem with some books like this is, and this isn't the only one, this is just the one that I read most recently. With books like this, sometimes the author has a tendency to tell the story instead of showing the story. I want to be shown the story, not just told. For instance, in this book, there was a character that died. It was like this whole big thing. There was an invasion on the camp and a very, very important person within the camp dies, which is a big deal, right? But it didn't feel like a big deal because instead of, the character that we're following along as Jimson, instead of Jimson watching this person fight these creatures, these sentinels, and get overpowered and fall after putting up a brave fight, Jimson breaks away and runs to him to try to help him in some way, because he's a very important character in the book. He's got to help him, right? He's got to save him. He feels the blood on his hands. He feels the wound, and it's just gaping open. He's doing his best to just close it up, but it's useless. And the man laying there knows it's useless. And so he takes his hand and makes him stop, has him look at him, gives him, maybe mutters a few words to him about continuing on, doing what's best for the people, urging him to continue and get out of here and you know, make those connections with the people in the underground facility. And, you know, and then his eyes slowly drift away, and instead of looking at Jimson anymore, he's looking somewhere in the beyond, and Jimson's left with just a corpse, and knows that the time's up. You know, that would have put me right there when it happened, and it would have been gut-wrenching, you know, because, I mean, with it being an important character, any time like that is gut-wrenching. But instead, the way it came about is a side character was telling everybody that important character fell in the battle around the campfire. Like, she was just telling people around the campfire that he had fallen. And so it was more like it was a side statement instead of me being, I was being told what happened instead of seeing it for myself. And like I said, that's something that happens with a lot of books like this. And it's fine. It's still a good story. I just didn't feel like I was in it, is the only thing. That's the difference between a good book and a great book. Still an interesting story. And if he had expanded on some scenes, easily could have turned this into a series, either a duology or a trilogy or something, could have been made out of this concept. There was so much that could have been dove further into, things that I don't think things would have gotten resolved with the new people as quickly. I think there would have been more fight from the people, not just one person putting up a fight. I don't know. There were ways to expand, I feel like. And I like the concept so much that I wish it had been expanded a little bit. So I gave this a 3 out of 5. The only other review was a 5. The cheapest is $4.50 on Kindle. We greatly appreciate him sending us the book, and I'm very glad that I read it. And that finished up my month. So, what did you read in the month of January? What were your favorites? What were your least favorites? Did you read any of these? Have you read any of these books that I talked about? Did you disagree with my thoughts? Did you agree with them? Let's talk about it. And I'm going to need some persuasion to continue on with some stories. And I'm going to need the people that are Ender's Game fanatics to come out of the shadows and talk about these books with me, please. And guide me on the path through the rest of the Enderverse, please. So yeah, let's talk about it all down in the comments, or come follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, The Unfinished TBR. We've got an email, theunfinishedtbr@gmail.com. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify with brand new episodes every single Monday. If you've already read The Night and the Moth and are looking forward to our book club and want to get started, maybe go into our Fable book club and put some notes in there of different sections that you liked. If you're going to start it so that you can be part of that conversation as well, take notes along the way so that we can all see what your thoughts were at different times, and not just mine, because I think I'm the only one that's commented so far. So add your thoughts in there, and between either next week or the week after, we should be having that book club. Be looking for it. All right, we'll see you next time. Love you. Bye.